In today's video, I've 3D printed these parts and we're going to turn them into a Rainbow Six Siege sledgehammer that, of course, Sledge uses in-game. And this thing is going to be full size and beautiful. So a big thanks to Variant Armaments who let me use his 3D files to actually print this, and he also sent over originally an actual full-scale 3D printed hammer that he makes and sells, and there'll be links to all his socials in the description below. Now I made some basic changes to some of the stuff here. You can see that we actually have two hammer heads, because I initially printed one as it was, and I'm trying to make it as light as possible and of course use as little material. So I printed it hollow, but it's got no rigidity whatsoever. It is not a particularly solid thing. It feels bad, it feels flimsy, feels like a cheap toy. So I thought, gonna have to do better. I still want to have it be mostly hollow, but I'm gonna try and come up with something better for it, for how I'm gonna try and make this. So what I did was I decided to go in and modify the files a little bit, and what I put was just simple tubes through the superstructure in the middle, which results in a still extremely light hammerhead, but it ends up being surprisingly strong. Of course, you don't want to go whacking this on anything, but it is actually a very strong structure inside, resulting in it mostly being hollow, very, very light, and surprisingly solid to the touch. And then it's just got a lightning infill to help out when it needs to make structures above empty space. So yeah, where we have a completely solid hammer. It actually does feel pretty good. Now, you'll notice that the base, that's where I printed it from, and the top did not print. So it actually like failed on basically the last couple of layers, which was the best place it could have failed, I gotta say. So I ended up printing off two end caps. I was already going to do this for the bottom side that was on the base anyway, because I couldn't fit this on the K1 sideways. So we're now going to just glue these on. And I'm going to do that off camera because of course it's just a ton of glue and slapping these on and leaving them to set. But to be honest, that amazingly went well. It could have failed at any other point and I would have had to do an entire reprint. So I'm very lucky we failed there. And then the original maker actually puts a steel core through the entire hammer. For me, I'm just going to be doing it with plastic rods that I've 3D printed, but a different orientation, so they're hopefully quite strong. Again, this is not going to be for doing anything with, this is purely for being on display, so I think it will hold up fine, and you'll see by the end of the video that surprisingly this thing actually holds up quite well when you're moving it around. The actual main problem with this build in the long term will be the superglue. It's just cheap superglue that off-gasses quite regularly. So I'm pretty sure within like a couple of years, I'm probably going to have to come back and repaint this again. But right now we're going to glue this whole thing together. Then we're going to give it a matte black paint job with a little bit excess matte black in different areas, just so it gives a bit more of a satin feel. So it looks like it's actually been like held and worn in certain areas. And the plan was to go for some silver highlights, but didn't quite work out the way I wanted to, but we'll see as we go on. Now I'm assembling the hammer head here and its component parts that go directly onto it. And I made a few more modifications. So for instance, this is a slight cutout into the surface so that the actual piece going into it sits not flush on the surface, but integral to it. And I think it looks really good. Now, if I was to take this a step further, if I was to do it again, I would also have those additional holes actually be for more sticks, because like, why not? I could probably have a lot more security there just from it. So could have done that, but didn't. And now the big thing here is to make sure that all these things I'm gluing are in the right orientation, that they're very plumb, because of course if it's off by a different degree, it's going to look a little bit weird if it's not right. And I'm also, you can see me testing all the structural pieces that are going in, and I'm just basically finding the one that has the tightest fit for that hole, because there's a little bit of tolerance obviously when you 3D print. It's a little bit different with each one. So I'm making sure the tightest one is the one I'm going to use. And it was quite interesting because some of those purple poles were like really loose in some of the holes, but some of them were super tight. And then when I fully assembled it, every single one that I used for the different holes all ended up being tight. So just pure luck there, I think. And you can also notice on the purple insets that there's one part that is just a flat piece. That's because that was the bed that it printed on, because all the hammer parts were printed vertically apart from the hammerhead itself. And then the purple inserts were printed lying down. That way we've got vertical lines for the supports and horizontal lines for the actual pieces, resulting in hopefully better structural integrity overall. And you've also watched me make my first mistake here. And actually I think it was the only mistake I made, which just added way too much glue to the top of that nut, because I thought, oh yeah, I'll add glue to this and then stick it on. And I was like, when I put it on, I was like, oh yeah, it doesn't actually cover the entire surface. So you end up seeing that turn white later on because there was just far too much glue there. But it's going to get spray painted anyway and cleaned off, so not a big issue. Now we have two halves fully assembled. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to bring in the original, the one that was actually sent over to me, and is the one that you can buy online if you want to buy these, so that I could make sure to actually assemble this correctly, because I could easily at this point stick this piece the wrong way around. You'll also see the big difference in overall style as well, because the one sent to me and the one you can buy is a very nice silver. It looks amazing, but mine's is going to be black, and of course I've printed it in black filament, but we're also spray painting it in a matte black as well. And this is where, yeah, I'm just going to double, triple check that I'm going to stick this the right way around. You can also see there is a blockage here, a little bit of a problem with the 3D file, and it's that indent is a cylinder that goes through. So I'm just going to drill that out, and that's something I just didn't notice when I was slicing up the files. Could have easily fixed that beforehand. But yeah, with that being fixed, we are now almost done with assembly. We almost have two complete halves, and I did consider trying to figure out how maybe I could make this in two separate pieces so that it could be disassemblable, and that would be cool. Because then, you know, if I'm going to take it somewhere, I could pick it in two halves. But then I thought, nah, I'm not taking this anywhere. Like, where am I going to take this? So yeah, I decided to go ahead and glue it up and make it one big object. You can also see that I'm using a can of Heinz tomato soup in order to actually weigh this down while it glues up. But that is pretty much it. You can see my overdone glue there went white as it's set, because obviously it's just way too much there. But for the most part, the gluing was pretty decent, and because of the way I was like inserting some of the pieces, it ended up not being like a bad glue job, and that was my only real mess up in the entire build. And now we're just gonna do a dry fit to see how this looks. Make sure I've got all the way right, right way around. There's nothing looking odd. There's not like a weird curve or anything in the actual hammer itself. And yeah, there we go. This thing is massive, by the way. It's beautiful. It is very cool. It's kind of rare to obviously see in-game stuff in real life. And you can see my failed hammerhead from earlier there. But yeah. So I'm very freaking happy with this. So after this, we're just going to just slap those two pieces together with some glue. And that is us done. And this is the final result. So fully glued up and painted. You might not even notice on camera that it's been painted, but this is being given a big coat of matte black. And with some areas, I've gone over it a bunch of times so that it becomes more of a satin finish. And it looks like it's got wear and tear. I did try to put silver on these bits, but I didn't do a particularly good job. I wanted every single like nub to be a little bit revealed with silver, but it didn't quite work out how I wanted. I think if I was to go back and do this again, those nuts I'd print off in silver or grey filament, and then I'd spray paint them black, just like I did here. But then I'd come back with a little bit of sandpaper and just reveal the grey or silver underneath. And I think that would look a lot better. And would also, of course, wear incredibly well, I think, as well, rather than just putting silver paint on the top. So yeah, that's the one thing I'd probably do differently, but that's a very minor thing that I would change. And then yeah, for the final thing, I actually stole some of the tartan off the other one, and you can see the differences in styles there. And yeah, I am super happy with this. I love its look in black. And although I did want to do a lot more kind of silver highlights, worn parts and stuff like that, I'm going to leave it as is because it looks just so good. And look at this. Structurally, this thing is actually sound. It's weird. I thought it was, when I assumed when I was printing this and was starting to think of assembling it, I was assuming when I held it in the middle, it would have a bend to it. And that, you know, if you shake that around, there would be movement. But it's surprisingly sturdy. Definitely not as sturdy as the professionally made one that you can buy, but it's more sturdy than I thought it would be. And of course, it's light as hell. It is absolutely got no weight to it whatsoever, which I like. And of course, that means less filament used as well. So yeah, very happy with it. So that is my build of Sledge's sledgehammer from Rainbow Six Siege, and gone with a matte black paint job on it. I think you can do all kinds of different paint jobs for this hammer and make it look incredible. And I'm just super happy to have now two of these hammers at full size that look incredible. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.